Paige Dimakos, let's talk about our next matchup. The
Move it.
Texans at the Patriots. The Patriots won this football game, and they are back in the AFC Championship once again, right? Different coach, different situation, different head coach. But we're going to talk about C.J. Stroud, man. 4 interceptions in the first half. He pulled the Nathan Peterman, throwing 4 interceptions in one half.
Never want to
I want
pull a
to ask
Nathan.
this.
You never want to pull a Nathan Peterman.
Nah,
It's never a good thing.
never want to do a Nathan Peterman. I want to ask this. Should the Texans be comfortable moving forward with C.J. Stroud into the future?
No, how could you be? This is multiple playoff games in a row. I know you won the game in Pittsburgh, but anybody that was watching that game knows that they won that game because of their defense. They won in spite of the fact that there were multiple turnovers, multiple fumbles, and multiple mishaps on offense. You're talking 2 back-to-back years with no progress offensively, a big investment, and I'm talking draft capital and free agent on the offensive side of the football, and there not being progress in the overall quarterback play that we have seen from CJ Stroud. And quite frankly, I'm not even talking about talent. I'm talking about the mental part of this, because there was a conversation that happened on ESPN, and it was a very valid one. And it was whether or not the Houston Texans should think about starting Davis Mills in the second half. And I think that if you had told us that at the end of the rookie year, right, of CJ Stroud, people would have laughed you out of the building. But the conversation happened because mentally, you could tell CJ Stroud was not in a good place. There's missing throws, and then there's what was going on in that football game. It was bad. And he was not facing either, and this is a big point of this, he wasn't facing the Houston Texans defense. He was facing a defense that is middle of the pack or below middle of the pack on nearly every category defensively this year. And they played well, but CJ made them play well. And I understand. I'm not saying you should move off of CJ. What I'm telling you is, the question is, do I feel confident? Should they feel confident? And the answer to me is no, because of what you've seen. This is going to be a prove it year for CJ, as it should be, because you have a small window here where you're either going to have to sign him to a deal, pick up his 5th-year option. These are going to be the next couple years of conversation. He's got to show you that he can be the guy that he was his rookie year and better to make you want to keep him around. Otherwise, they may be looking to move off of him because this defense is getting wasted, Keith.
Yeah, so remember last week we talked about this, right? And it was like, how far can the Houston Texans can go,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I was
Yep.
like, Paige, I'm like, I don't trust it, right? At the end of
Yeah.
the day. And it was because I didn't trust CJ Stroud. And I didn't trust CJ Stroud was because watching him play, I can tell that it was a mental thing. This was not a physical thing. This was a mental thing. When you roll out and you have 2 defenders on you, right? One is bringing you down, and you decide to launch the football straight into the air. That's a mental situation, right? That means you're pressing. That means you're forcing things. That means you're trying to make things happen. You're not throwing the football, you're aiming the football, right? Like you're trying to fit the football in spots that it shouldn't go. The game is moving too fast for you. And you honestly, I don't think Marcus Spears was wrong about that. Like he may need to take a break, take a step back. But I also look at the rest of the NFL pundits, right? And it's unfortunate because you're talking about a bunch of former players, right? A bunch of former players that crowned this man, that crowned CJ Stroud as a rookie and said, you know what? He's going to be the next guy. I would take him over any other quarterback in the NFL. When you look at the numbers, and the numbers for his rookie year were great, but great rookie quarterback numbers usually translate to being average numbers, right? This was not an Andrew Luck rookie year. This was not a Cam Newton rookie year to where they were throwing 30 touchdowns and 10 interceptions or something like that. When you look at those numbers, they were very mediocre NFL quarterback numbers, and it should have allowed him to take the next step. So the question is this: has CJ Stroud ever been that great of a quarterback in the NFL, or were we just projecting him to be a great quarterback in the NFL? Because you want to know why? Because we forget that winning is a team statistic.
Yep.
That team went to the playoffs, and we assigned all of the credit to CJ Stroud, right? Instead of saying, oh, wait, this might be a really good football team, and that's why they're winning. So I think it's very tough. CJ's in a very tough situation. And if I'm the Houston Texans, I'm going to be completely honest, approaching the draft, I'm thinking about taking a quarterback within the top 100 picks. When you go into the Carson Becks, the Cade Klubniks, right? See where Ty Simpson falls in this draft stratosphere and everything. I'm thinking about taking a quarterback in the top 100 picks because you have to give yourself opportunity to move forward because of this defense is so damn good. You can't waste it.
And here's the thing, I think we've gotten a little too coddling, I guess would be the word, in certain situations with quarterback situations, where at the end of the day, you got to compete every day for your job.
Mhm.
And CJ has not proven that he is a superstar or anywhere close to that as far as who he is and who he's shown you to be throughout this period of time in his career. And to your point, you brought up the numbers. So I brought them to the show, right? And I think the thing that people got caught up in is the amount of yards he threw for, which was great. He threw for 4,100 yards his rookie year, but he threw for 23 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. For context, an elite quarterback, the guy who's going to win the MVP, Matthew Stafford, he threw for 46 touchdowns, double what CJ Stroud threw for. Okay. So when you talk about what great is, when you want to put him in the conversation, put him over guys like Stafford, over guys like Joe Burrow, which is what pundits did coming into that offseason, was putting him in the top five. Top five quarterbacks are not throwing 23 touchdowns, gentlemen. That's not what's happening. So I don't understand why we can't allow for these guys to show us a little bit more over a longer period of time before we're so quick to put them over guys who have proven it year over year over year. And so for this, when you're talking about CJ Stroud in this conversation, I'm in full agreement with you. If you need CJ to become the best version of himself, he needs to be challenged. And if you can't handle a guy coming in and competing with you, then I think you're too soft to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. Period. And I know that has become a thing that happens in guys like, I think of the Mike McDaniel situation in Tua. But look at how that went from where it was to what's happening now. That's because that doesn't work. You have to compete. You have to be able to be a strong leader as a quarterback and deal with adversity. And this game was really bad. And the only reason that it was
Well,
even entertaining is because that defense is so elite that it is in the same category statistically as all the defenses that won Super Bowls over the last 50 years. And they couldn't get there because their quarterback put them in that position. That's it. That's why they lost the football game.
yeah, and I don't want to just leave it at this game. So I don't want people to think that I'm saying the Houston Texans should draft another quarterback and with their top 100
No.
picks because of this one football game. Last week was not good. It was not
Yep.
great at all. And I said that last week on the show. If Aaron Rodgers completes that pass to DK Metcalf, if DK Metcalf comes down with this football, we have a totally different football
I
game
agree.
on our hands, and the Pittsburgh Steelers probably win that game because CJ Stroud did not play great. But even when you look at the games played during the season, when you watch this Houston Texans offense, they have always been the Achilles heel to this Houston Texans defense. And so you need somebody, like you said, to challenge CJ Stroud. And if somebody could potentially elevate it by basically just doing the blocking and tackling, right? Hitting the singles, hitting the doubles, and occasionally hitting the triple. But I can't have anybody striking out, right? Like I can't have you turning the football over and giving the opposing offense a short field to go. Because what's the point in building a great defense? This defense is so great that it plays offense, meaning that it scores itself, right? That's how good this
Literally.
defense is.
That's not a joke. That's not a joke. And I want to ask you something
Yep.
because I think the fans, right? A lot of fans are just, they look at the box score, they see, okay, he threw for this many touchdowns, he did this, this is what his rookie year was. And there was a lot of, I think, misinformation coming out of that rookie year, and largely to what we've discussed, right? Where he was attributed for the winning, and now it's kind of, that's been exposed because you see how great this defense is and has been throughout the entirety of his career. So when you put your scouting hat on and you're watching him, the thing that is concerning, I would imagine, is that he has not progressed at all from that first year to now. What are you seeing when you watch him play? Is it just mental? Is it just he's not progressing at all as a quarterback? What are you seeing from him? Because I think that's the part that if I was a Texans fan, I would be most concerned about.
Yeah, so the first off, CJ Stroud is a physically talented guy, right? He
Yep.
can make every throw
Yep.
on a football field. The parts that where he's not progressing is the mental part, right? Is where it's the coverages, right? Whether that's pre-snap or post-snap looks, things rolling into different zones, defenders rolling into different zones and not identifying it, right? But the biggest thing, and this was a thing that was at Ohio State, right? That there when there was clutter, right? And he had to create a play by himself, he didn't always have a clear answer. And that was even an issue watching his college film at Ohio State, that he became really sporadic, right? And he made erratic decisions instead of making a clear-cut decision that was always positive, right? So I think that's the biggest thing that you're seeing with Cedric. And you can talk about the offensive line not being great, right? But when the offensive line is not great, which a lot of good quarterbacks don't have great offensive lines, how do they make a decision when you're in the midst of chaos, right? And we're talking about some of the greatest, right? You talk about the Aaron Rodgers, you talk about the Tom Brady's, right? They understand where to go with the football when we still have chaotic situations. And I think that's the thing we're seeing with CJ is that, yeah, when everything looks really good and the picture is painted perfect, he can execute at a high level. He has to start to develop the answers when everything is not pretty. When things get a little bit muddy, what is going to be my go-to decision? What is going to be my go-to solution? And I think that's going to be in the offseason. That has to be in the film room. That has to be in the playbook. And that has to be him making a decision for himself.
It reminds me a lot of the conversation and discourse that's happened with Jared Goff, quite frankly. When
Mhm.
you have a clean pocket and all your weapons are healthy and things are going right, they can pick you apart. But Keith, how often does that happen? How
Right.
often do you have a healthy O line throughout the whole year? How often do you have a clean pocket the whole time? How often do you have all your weapons at your disposal throughout an entire year? The answer is nearly never, right? And that's the thing that I think has always I've always had a tough time with Jared Goff because I understand when everything is perfect, who you are. That's fine. But I got to know who you are when things are at 75% and at 50% and what you're going to do in those moments. And when you don't have the ability to scramble and you don't have the athletic, like you can make every throw, sure. But those are pocket passers. They can't make plays with their legs. You saw CJ run one and he looked so uncomfortable running the football, playing the game today against the Patriots. And it's because that's just not his game, right? And so you got to know that who are these guys when things break down
Chaotic. Yep.
that's who it is. It reminds me a lot of the discourse that's happened around Jared Goff because the reality is it's very hard to make it through a year with your offensive line healthy. It's very hard to have a good offensive line. It's the position that every head coach in the NFL wants more of. Superstar O linemen. They would all take every single one of
Yep.
them wants another one, all of them. And it's because it's the hardest technical position to me to play on the football field. And it's the one that is underdeveloped in college that comes into the NFL not prepared with the biggest learning curve. So I have a tough time with evaluating things only when things go well, because that's just not going to happen over the entirety of an NFL season.
No, and you should take everything into compass, right? And that's why you want to see X amount of games played from an NFL quarterback. And that's why we've seen so many quarterbacks that come from these talented programs get to the NFL and struggle because the picture was always clear in college, right? Because they had the overwhelmingly better
Yep.
talent to where it was pretty much easy for them to
Yep.
execute at a high level. And we didn't know what their decision making would be when things became chaotic.